The humanitarian crisis in Gaza continues to grow, with the United Nations aid chief saying the coming days will be make or break for efforts to help. This, as the region health minister says, 14 people have died in the last 24 hours from starvation or malnutrition. Robert Huish, Associate Professor of International Development Studies at Dalhousie University, joins us once again. Good morning, Robert.
Hey, good morning, Brienne.
Thanks so much for being here so early. Can you just give us a little bit of an update on the latest in Gaza?
This has gone to the worst nightmare possible for people in Gaza and families who are affected by this as well. We're now looking at famine conditions across the Gaza Strip, and quite clearly, this is one that's actually into the war crimes territory. This is something where the distribution of food in the Gaza Strip is being controlled by something called the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. This is a new operation that started by the Israeli Defense Forces and funded deeply by the United States that is controlling almost 100% of food going into Gaza. So traditionally, where we've seen humanitarian aid come into Gaza, it's been through support of the United Nations. But now the UN kitchens, the bakeries, they've all been rolled up since May. And so in that time, these GHF, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation corridors and distribution centers have been set up in a way that is so amateur and so negligent of how you deal with famine conditions that we're seeing people lose their lives by simply trying to get food for their families. This is coming in two ways. One, by the nature of these distribution. You have corridors that have been set up to 4 kilometers long. People walk on foot. It's walking only, carrying as much food as they can away from the corridor back to their families. So there's been trampling. There's been people just perishing during that difficult walk. But there's also been Israeli Defense Forces and U.S. security contractors who have opened fire on innocent civilians who are trying to get food in these conditions. So I think right now, Bria, we are looking at the worst imaginable condition where for people of Gaza, where very much so the Israeli government is now deep into the war crimes territory.
So, in your opinion, has this reached the point of no return in regards to a humanitarian crisis?
Yeah, we're way over that. This is something that we've seen is not an accident. This is intentional by design. We followed this war very carefully since it started, and we've seen that the escalation of pressure and hurt on civilian populations is now at the ultimate extreme. The when you get to the point of starvation and pestilence, this is something that is always been seen as the ultimate weapon, and it's something that right now we're seeing there's no chance of Benjamin Netanyahu wanting to see any sort of ceasefire against Hamas. There's still bombings that are taking place. In fact, in the areas where UN humanitarian offices were set up in parts of Gaza, and in addition to the organization of this food distribution, we are in a territory right now that that history is not going to judge very kindly. And it seems that the only reason that we've seen this take place is for Mr. Netanyahu to try to maintain his own political career, appeasing some of his strong right wing allies in the Israeli government to say that there's no ceasefire option. They want to see an eradication of Gaza altogether, and this is the final step.
So, is there a point to continued fighting in Gaza?
No, no, there absolutely is not. And even the military staff, top generals say there is no point. All we're doing by allowing this to occur is continuing to hurt civilian populations, right? We're seeing right now that the people who are being killed now are civilian. There's been dozens of Palestinians in multiple locations across Gaza in the last couple of days that have been killed. Even newborns. There's one case of a newborn child who was delivered in a complex surgery after his mother was killed, 7 months pregnant. They're perishing. We're seeing that it's now children who are in that case, and really, you don't end terror or war by starving children. And national security is not protected by shooting the starving. All this does is create war crimes, and I think that's what we're seeing. And even soldiers who are on the front lines of this, including U.S. contractors, have spoken out to agencies like the BBC telling their testimony. There's footage coming out that just shows civilians who are in desperate state being fired upon because there's so many people trying to get to these food distribution centers at once that the security forces there are retaliating with tank shells and with open fire. It's a nightmare.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's just a worsening condition. We have about 20 seconds left here, but has public sentiment shifted as the crisis grows?
It is. And what's encouraging to see is that there are groups within Israel that are taking to the streets and saying, enough. There's no way that you can justify this. It's been so difficult for the Israeli government to try to justify bombing of civilian populations since the war began. But now starvation, this is the ultimate hurt that you can put on a people. And there's just no way it's going to be justified. So I would say that there's going to be political tides turning in Israel. And the real question is the US going to continue to support humanitarian outreach to Israel in the current form, or will the UN agencies be allowed back in?
Right. Well, thank you, Robert, so much for your time this morning.
Thanks, Mia.